Merry Christmas, and welcome to another bedtime stories with Boopy and Loopy. Tonight, we will be reading How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss. Every Who down in Whoville likes Christmas a lot. ... But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmoose, the whole Christmas season. Now please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be that his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be, perhaps, that his shoes were on too tight. But I think the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Who's, staring down from his cave with a sour grinning frown at the warm-lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath, and are hanging their stockings. He snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas Eve. It's practically here. Then he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming. I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow he knew all the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early. They'd rush for their toys. And then, oh, the noise, And the Who's young and old would sit down and feast. And they'd feast. They would feast on the Who pudding
and the rare Who roast beast,
which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Who's would start singing. They'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing. And the more the Grinch thought of the Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with this now. I must stop Christmas from coming.
but how?
And he got an idea. An awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know now what just to do. The Grinch laughed in his throat. What a great Grinchy trick. With his coat and his hat, I look like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer. The Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. If I can't find a reindeer, I'll just make one instead. So he called his dog Max. Then he took some red thread, and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ransack sleigh. And he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, "Get up." And the sleigh started down toward the homes where the Who's lay a snooze in their town. And when he came to the first little house on the square, this is stop number 1, the old Grinchy claws hissed. And he climbed on the roof, empty bags in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch. But if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once for a moment or two. Then he struck his head. Out the fireplace flew. Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant. Top guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn, and plums. And he stuffed them in bags. The Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimney. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. And now, grinned the Grinch, I will stuff up the tree. Then the last thing he took was the log for the fire. Then he went up the chimney, himself the old liar. And the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. It was 1:15 dawn, or the Who's still in bed. Or the Who's still a snooze when he packed up his sled. 3,000 feet up, ooh, off the side of Mount Crumpet. He rode with his load to the tip of Mount Dumpet. Pooh-pooh to all the Who's he was Grinchishly humming. They're finding out now that there's no Christmoose coming. Then the Who's down in Whoville will go boo-hoo. That's a noise, grinned the Grinch, that I simply must hear. So he paused and the Grinch put up his hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, the sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes, then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming, it came. Somehow or another, it came just the same. And what happened then? Well, ... In Whoville, they say, the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And there for a minute his heart felt quite so tight. He whizzed with his load through the bright morning light. And he brought back the toys and food for the feast.
Even himself carved the roast beast. And there was another bedtime stories with Boopy.